Hello, I'm Dr. Manuel G. Saldivar. I'm a cognitive psychologist and a university faculty member. On this channel, I focus on ideas and concepts that will help you become more successful as a college student. Please join me for today's episode. In today's episode, we'll discuss the topic of personality. This is an important issue for college students. Your personality doesn't just determine how you interact with other people, with the world around you, although that is the case. It also has a huge influence on your future. Many college students struggle to determine what major, what career they want to pursue. In some cases, students are unsure about a major or career that they have an interest in. Is this really for me? Is this really what I want to do with my life? And in other cases, some students may have a misunderstanding or a mismatch between their desire to pursue a certain major and career and whether that really is the best fit for them. There's not one best way, not one magic wand you could wave to answer all these questions. But if you have a good grip on your personality in a real deep and fundamental way, often this can offer you a lot of guidance. I'll talk about the relationship between your personality and career later in the episode, but first I want to make clear what is this idea of personality all about. One thing personality is not, because this often causes confusion with students, or not just students, but people in general that don't necessarily have a background in psychology. Your personality is completely independent of your intelligence. I've had students, and I've also read research on people when they're prompted to talk about their personality or reflect on their personality. They often create an overlap that isn't really there, at least not in a scientific or technical sense, between their personality and their intelligence. I've heard students describe themselves or describe other people as, well, their personality is that they're very intelligent, they're always good at school, or describing themselves, my personality has always been that I've always enjoyed school and I've been very smart. It may be true that someone enjoys or doesn't enjoy school or is not successful in school, but your intelligence is a separate thing from your personality. To put it another way, different individuals of the same intelligence level can and do have very different personalities. This question of intelligence goes beyond the scope of this video. It's a very detailed and complicated discussion. Although if you're interested in learning more, leave a comment below, and I'm happy to try and create a video on intelligence at a future date. But here, I just want to make clear that intelligence describes your capacity to learn or to do, your ability, your aptitude in a certain area, whether that area might be math or music or athletics or whatnot. So if you think of intelligence as a container, as a vase, to use the example here on the screen, then your aptitude, your ability to fill that container with knowledge, with information related to a certain area, math, music, whatever, that is what we think of as intelligence. Personality describes something very different. And modern psychology typically starts from the standpoint of what's called the Big Five model of personality. This model or theory of personality goes back to the 1940s. It has a long history. It's been validated in hundreds or probably thousands of studies. We have evidence going back for decades that this theory is sound in terms of predicting people's behavior or understanding, categorizing how people behave based on their responses to the questions on these personality assessments. Because the Big Five theory focuses on 5 different factors, as we call them in psychology. You can think of them as buckets or bins with different traits, different characteristics that make up this Big Five personality model. And taken together, these 5 factors, these 5 buckets of personality traits are descriptive of how someone interacts with others and interacts with the world. These 5 categories, which I'll define more deeply in a moment, are extroversion, emotional stability, sometimes called neuroticism, agreeableness, which is sometimes referred to as openness, conscientiousness, and intellect and imagination. Now, some of these terms may be unfamiliar to you. I will go through them one by one, so don't despair if you're not sure what some of these concepts mean. The first one, extroversion, is a description or a measure of your tendency or not to be outgoing. How much do you enjoy, seek out, look for opportunities to interact with other people? So, someone who has a skill like that or that ability would be said to be highly extroverted. That's one end of a scale or a spectrum. On the other end of a scale or spectrum of extroversion is introversion, and that's someone who does not like to or will avoid opportunities to interact with other people, to meet new people, to be the life of the party, for example. So all of us have moments or times, situations where we will be more or less extroverted. So this is not either or, but most of us also typically will have some place on that spectrum, on that line, where we tend to fall more often than not. Sorry for the interruption, but if you're enjoying this video, please like, subscribe, and click on the bell icon for notifications. The second factor is called emotional stability, sometimes referred to as neuroticism. I know these words are a mouthful, but this is what we use to describe this factor, this bucket of traits. Emotional stability refers to our ability to resist frustration, stress, anger. So if you are very resistant to stress, if it takes a lot for you to get upset, to be angry, then you're said to have a high level of emotional stability. If you become angry or emotional, have emotional reactions to problems or challenges, things that happen very easily, then you're said to have low emotional stability or to be neurotic. That's kind of an older term that isn't used as much anymore in psychology, but you may have heard that term, oh, the person's very neurotic. What that's just referring to is that person is easily stressed. The third factor is agreeableness, sometimes called openness. And someone who is very agreeable is said to have a lot of optimism, to be very happy, and to have a very open demeanor. By open demeanor, I refer to someone who, whatever it is about them, however you might describe it in your own words, someone with an open demeanor is someone that you believe to be approachable, easy to talk to. If you had a problem, you would feel comfortable going to this person and asking for help, or at least trying to get advice. Conscientiousness is the fourth factor. That's part of the Big Five theory. Someone who's conscientious is said to be very careful, to be diligent, to prefer to or have an ability to focus on rules, order, procedure. People that are highly conscientious like things done a certain way, like to make sure that they're following rules, meeting deadlines, doing stuff that is expected of them in a given situation. If you are a little bit more casual, shall we say, or others might say careless about meeting deadlines, if you're not good at following rules, if you sort of don't like having an orderly situation or structure that kind of keeps you from doing whatever you want whenever you feel like it, then you are said to be less conscientious. And then finally, and this is probably the most confusing of these five factors just because of the terminology, we have intellect and imagination. Now, personality assessments and then this Big Five personality model are not intended to measure intelligence because, as I said earlier, intelligence is a separate characteristic. It's a separate part of who we are as human beings. And again, that would be another discussion. Intellect and imagination in this context of the Big Five theory of personality is not concerned with or doesn't look at how smart you are. It looks at what kind of smart you are. What kind of thinking, what kind of creativity do you possess? What kind of aptitudes do you have in terms of your thinking as a person? So what does this mean? You could have two people that are of equal intelligence, that both have similar comprehension or ability in terms of a certain career or profession, but one might be a very unconventional thinker. They think about their career, their profession in unique ways. They don't necessarily follow the traditional approach. They may not think of things in the same old way that they were taught themselves. They come up with unique ways of doing things or thinking about things that someone who would be on one end of the intellect imagination spectrum, an unconventional thinker, someone who is more conventional, who is might be said to be a little less creative or a little less outside the box as a thinker, could be just as intelligent as someone else in that same profession or in the same field, but their way of thinking is very different. They prefer or are more comfortable with or are better able to think in ways that others in that same field have thought before. They're more likely to follow the training, the education they've received, and kind of stick to the ways of doing things or ways of thinking about things that were taught to them, as opposed to coming up with their own unique approaches. So there isn't a right or wrong in terms of intellect or imagination, there's just a difference. All of these factors, the context, the situation that you're in, all determine whether a personality characteristic or someone's particular mix of personality traits are helpful or not helpful. I discourage students from thinking about personality as being right or wrong. Rather, think about your personality in terms of how good of a fit is it with what I want to do in life. If I am an engineering major and I don't like thinking about math, if I get anxious, if I'm neurotic about doing math problems, then a technical field that requires a lot of math may not be a good fit for you. If you are interested in a career or have thought about pursuing a career that requires a lot of public contact, but you are a very shy person, you're not very outgoing, you're not very extroverted, then you probably will have challenges doing that job if you're able to get it in the first place. Remember, as I've discussed in prior videos in this series, you as a college student are not living in a vacuum. You're going to compete against other people from similar backgrounds that have the same major, same degree, for jobs. And if someone else is a better fit for a certain job, if a certain job, a certain career, profession requires someone to be very outgoing, very extroverted, and you are not, then that doesn't mean that you should abandon that goal, but you should be mindful that you're going to have some challenges that people who are outgoing, let's say, are not going to have. So again, don't think of personality as right or wrong. Think of how close of a fit or how good of an alignment there is between your personality and the career or profession you want to pursue. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll click on the thumbs up icon below. And if you really enjoyed it, please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications by clicking on the bell icon. YouTube will notify you of future videos added to this channel. Remember, college success is challenging, it takes work and effort, but it is certainly within your grasp. Good luck.